Welcome back, everybody. I hope you're all amazing. I've got the Yamaha Magicstomp on the bench today. Doing this video has been a long and convoluted road. Basically, ever since I've done a video with the SPX90, I've been getting comments on that video about, hey, I love the symphonic effect. I love some of the delays, reverbs, and modulations in there. I love the pitch detune. Is there a pedal that can do that? And I thought basically you would have to go out and get something like an Axe-Fx and just spend a lot of time kind of trying to closely match those settings. But I forgot about the Magicstomp, because the Magicstomp has a lot of the classic Yamaha algorithms like Symphonic, like the dual Detune, like a bunch of the echo effects you find in the SPX90 and all the other SPX series. But it's got a bunch of things pulled from the UD Stomp, which is a bit of a cult classic, mostly for its association with Alan Holdsworth and the fact you can have 8 parallel delay lines with modulation, so you can go crazy creating your own chorus and flanger effects. That's in there. There's a bunch of other fun stuff which we will hear as well. There's also a very active Facebook users group over there who helped me out a lot, because when I got this unit, it didn't quite work properly. The encoder was a bit busted on it. And I asked a bunch of questions in there. People were really, really responsive. They suggested I try a bunch of things. Unfortunately, none of them worked. So I was just getting mono. No matter how I set this up, I wasn't getting any of the fun stereo effects in there. I eventually sent it over to Verley at Past Effects here in Australia. I've done a bunch of videos with the Past Effects pedals. They make some of my favorite pedals out at the moment, and Verley was kind enough to take a look at it and actually fix it up. It turns out the encoder on there, the volume control, it's like a dual ganged pot, and basically the solution that the previous owner had come up with that I bought off eBay was, let's say they just kind of MacGyvered it, and it wasn't actually putting out the same thing from both outputs. So Verley put a proper pot in there and it magically works. I also got the software editor that was made by a user over on the Facebook group, and I was able to dial in a bunch of my own presets. So shout out to everyone in the Facebook group. Shout out to Verley at Past Effects. We are now going to make some noise with the Magicstomp. I want to know, does this live up to the Yamaha reputation? Because the SPX90 is one of my favorite processors of all time. Is this the closest thing you can get to having an old rack unit on your pedal board? Let's find out. I've got the Magicstomp in an effects loop of my Axe-Fx. I'm going to start with a clean sound. There'll be plenty of dirty sounds throughout. I'm just going to be rolling with my PRS DGT. Going to start out in one of the split positions for the dirty stuff. I'll be in the humbucking positions. Let's just hear the starting point. Then I'm going to start with this dual delay patch. That one's pretty simple. I just dialed in a 300-ish and a 400-ish millisecond delay on the left and right channels there. Kind of classic effect. You just needed a nice dual delay. This is a great way to get it. The next patch that I've got is actually the iconic Yamaha Symphonic patch. This is the reason I bought this pedal, because I love the symphonic effect in the SPX90. I've got a Yamaha FX900 that has it, and a bunch of other stuff. I just really like the way it adds a whole amount of girth without necessarily sounding too washy. That symphonic effect is particularly tasty on clean sounds, as we heard there with that 80s style clean. Next up, I've got the modulation delay dialed in. I really like the way this has the kind of classic phase offset for the modulation, so it sounds extra wide in stereo. You've got all the usual selection of reverbs in here from springs, plates, and halls. I'm particularly fond of the hall reverb, so let's just have a listen to where I've got it set. I can adjust the time with that first controller, so I'll see if I can get kind of infinite reverb decay out of it. Kind of ticking all the boxes with delays there. That one's got a nice kind of crusty style decay. Doesn't necessarily sound like a real tape or even as close as some modern emulations that you would find, but it's totally usable. There is a left, center, right delay as well. While it doesn't have diffusion to do the full lexicon circular delay, you can set it up for similar times, and I think it sounds pretty good. We get this. There's a bunch of combination algorithms in here as well. Some combining symphonic and reverb. So this one is reverb running into the symphonic effect. So you've kind of got the symphonic effect processing the reverb tails, which sounds like this. To contrast that, this is just the reverb and the symphonic effect. So I guess they're probably running in parallel, or they're just running with the symphonic first into the reverb. I'm not sure, but it definitely sounds different. Have a listen to the tails. There's a bog standard chorus effect in here, then I'll let you hear a dynamic filter. I've changed the routing here so that these effects are now before any amp sims in my fractal. Those fuzz sounds are definitely not the worst fuzz sounds I've heard coming out of a digital multi-effects. Do they sound like the original things they're based on? Probably not. Do they still sound pretty usable? I think so, considering a lot of people are going to want to grab this either for like the SPX 90 stuff, like the Symphonic or the pitch detune, which we'll hear in just a second, and the Holdsworth presets, which I promise I am getting to. Before we go there, there is this like 8-voice parallel delay that you can get in there, very much along the lines of the UD stomp. I'm not sure if it's exactly the same algorithm as the UD stomp, but a lot of the same parameters are available there, especially when you dive in using the software editor. One cool thing is you can change the phase of each delay. So I've just set up 2 delays from there, panned hard left and hard right, but I flipped the phase on one of them. So it should give you like a kind of pseudo 2290 style sound in there. I've added a little bit of modulation to the delay lines as well. We'll get this. Much like the Fuzzes, it doesn't sound exactly like the original, but you can cop a bit of the vibe from there. There is a factory preset in there. I'm pretty sure it's a factory preset anyway, called Womanizer, which uses the dual Detune. So for those of you in the know, that may remind you of the famous Michael Landau SPX90 preset. I've looked up Michael's settings on the SPX90. They're not exactly the same as this preset on here, but nevertheless, it's dual Detune. So pan hard left and hard right. I think it's like 9 or 10 cents either side. I'll let you hear it dry and then with the effect in. That is 100% greasy. I totally approve of that. Between that, the Symphonic, and the dual and left, center, right delay, I feel like I've got my money's worth for this particular unit. Let's hear the analog style flanger in here. Again, I'm running this pre-dirt. Both the flanger and the phaser sound really good. I also really like the chorusing effect, and like I said earlier, the Symphonic, the pitch detune, and those delays made it worth the price of entry already. One thing that does annoy me on this is when you're using the knobs on the front panel, it's not a catch-up setting. So let's say you set the rate on a chorus really low, so you turn that knob down, then you change to a delay patch where that knob is assigned to the delay time. You have to sweep the knob all the way around to where it catches up and then bring it back. So that's one thing that's a little bit annoying when using the front panel. I've mostly been using the software editor that I mentioned earlier and just kind of saving patches and using this as a preset machine though. The other thing is you probably noticed with the Symphonic and the dual Detune style effect, when I kicked it in, I lost a bit of volume. So there's something happening in my setup. I've played around with the different input and output options on there where it's just not quite getting unity gain. Maybe that's just what it does. Again, it's kind of getting long in the tooth now, but nevertheless, we should move on to these Holdsworth UD Stomp settings. So these are kind of famous in the Alan Holdsworth fandom for good reasons, because they sound pretty amazing. And my understanding is that Alan actually had quite a long history with playing around with various delay units to get the kind of chorus effects he wanted to get. One unit that had some Holdsworth input is the Rocktron IntelliFX. That's got an 8-voice chorus in it. Apparently, the exact stuff that Alan wanted in there didn't quite get implemented the way he wanted, but eventually the UD Stomp gave him all of those options in there. And you can look up the manual and look at the Holdsworth presets, and there's been a bunch of users who have replicated those in the Magicstomp. So I actually just downloaded a patch from the excellent Magicstomp users group. Shout out to everybody there who helped me out when I was trying to get this unit up and going. And those presets sound fantastic. So I'll let you hear the Swells preset in there to get started. Then we'll go through the lead preset and the chorus. I think the 8-voice chorus in here sounds particularly good. That's the worst Alan Holdsworth imitation you're going to hear all day, but they do sound absolutely beautiful. That 8-voice chorus in particular is particularly inspiring, and it reminds me of when I looked those settings up and I actually plugged them into my Axe effects years ago and was kind of blown away at the creative possibilities you can get out of using multiple, in this case 8 delay lines for chorusing. They sound beautiful in there, so that's an extra nice touch because the UD Stomp goes for big money nowadays. And again, having it all in there, plus everything else we've heard, I think makes this a pretty good deal. There's even some rudimentary amp modeling in here. I wonder if these are the same algorithms as the DG preamps. I've got one of the DG 1000s with the motorized knobs. Anyway, I'll let you hear it as is. I think there's some built-in cab sims, but they're disabled, so there's going to sound pretty awful. What I'm going to do is kick in my free greenback IR that you can get in the video description. So we'll hear it without and then with. Again, nothing mind-blowing, but I guess you could probably get by in a pinch with that. That's just running it into an IR. I imagine if you had a high-quality power amp and a cab as well, you could use this as a stand-in for a preamp, which I'm sure people have done. I've seen pictures of people chaining multiple Magicstomps together to do that. I'll let you hear a few more sounds in there. I'll let you hear that dynamic filter again. There's a much better factory preset in here than what I dialed in. And then I'll let you hear the Rotary, because I think the Rotary is also surprisingly good. I'm going to pull up stumps right there. Again, a massive thank you to Verly at Past Effects for fixing this unit for me. I didn't think it was going to be saved when I took it out and I was getting mono out of both outputs and none of these fun panning effects. Thought I might have just wasted my money on a dud, but it turns out just repairing that encoder did the trick. So Verly, thank you so much. I'm so grateful. And go and check out the Past Effects website. You want to check out some amazing modern recreations of classic pedals. Also, the editor is so handy on there. All the presets that I made, I dialed in with the editor, and I feel like that gives you that extra layer on top that we're kind of used to with units like the H9 or the Axe Effects or the Helix, where you can deep dive and really fine tune some of these sounds. The factory presets are really good. There's a JHS video on this unit where you can go and check that out. But for me, being a rack nerd, this really does live up to being a rack processor that you can put on your pedal board. There's some stuff that I'm not super stoked about on it, like the way the front panel knobs work. You know, they're there, but they're annoying to use. Again, probably just use it like a preset machine. And then the fact that unity gain is a bit hard to achieve on there with certain settings is a little bit annoying. But again, I'm just going to use it for very particular sounds on there. The big upside are those symphonic, pitch detune, delay, reverb, filter, modulation effects on there. It all sounds really, really good. And I think it still holds up to anything else out there. It's just interesting to me that now Yamaha own Line 6 and stuff like the HX Stomp or the HX Effects doesn't have a symphonic mode in there. It doesn't have the classic kind of SPX90 algorithms in there. I feel like that would be a massive value add for that ecosystem, because while I like the sound of this, it's kind of like my old rack gear. I'd never take it out to gig with it. I'm just going to try and replicate those sounds as close as I can in my Axe effects. The Holdsworth presets on there, you know, the UD Stomp is so expensive now for what it does. I think you're much better off getting a Magicstomp. The fact that it's got a bunch of preamps in there is pretty handy as well. I can totally understand why this pedal still has a cult following. So if you can find one used for a decent price, probably means you don't have to play around with crusty old SPX 90s or anything like that to get those fun effects. There's also some stuff that I think it just does really well on its own. And it kind of paved the way for stuff like, you know, the HX effects and the H9, the H90, and all these multi-algorithm digital effects pedals that we have now. So the Magicstomp, I think it's great. I really enjoy doing this video with it. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Hope you have a great day. If you want to support my channel, you can buy my music or sign up to my Patreon. Just check the video description. You can even get that free IR that I used in here. See you next time. Thanks for watching.